Welcome to Master Your Money and Mindset, the podcast where financial success meets personal growth. I'm your host, Elizabeth Heiza, Chief Marketing Officer at the Barnum Financial Group, and I want to thank you so much for listening. On Master Your Money and Mindset, we dive into the powerful connection between your mindset and your financial well-being. So the fact that you are here means you are already one step ahead of the game and that you're taking control of both your finances and your mindset. Today, we're diving into one of the most significant tax reforms in recent history, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts of 2017. So whether you're a business owner or a W-2 employee or just a savvy investor, this law has likely impacted or will likely impact your wallet in some way. Some you may realize and some you may not. But what exactly changed? Who will benefit? What are the key provisions? What's going to expire? What does it mean for you? Those are all the things that we're going to dive into today. And to lead this conversation with me is my dear colleague, Kate Cassidy, Vice President of Advanced Markets at Barnum. So Kate, welcome again to the show. It's nice to have you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Kate, before we jump in, can you please tell us what it is to be Vice President of Advanced Markets? What does Advanced Markets mean to our listeners?
Yeah, the title doesn't mean a whole lot to people who aren't in our industry, which I always say it's not a very indicative title. So what it essentially means is that I'm involved with advanced planning. So I'm an estate planning attorney by trade, by training. I used to do that in my previous life. I worked at a law firm. So I deal with all the same areas of law that you would think of your estate planning attorney dealing with. I just don't actually practice. So I don't serve as anyone's lawyer, but I talk about estate planning, estate taxes, elder law and Medicaid planning, special needs planning, business planning, succession planning, that kind of thing. Anytime there's sort of a legal element to the plan, that's where our advisors bring me in to do the brainstorming and the case design and help clients understand what they have, what they need, where the gaps are.
And you're meeting with clients directly.
Yes. Yeah.
You're having those conversations.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. With their advisors generally, because the advisors need to be in on it because there's lots of different facets to the plan. So yeah, I definitely meet with clients and often with their attorneys as well.
So in your role, understanding acts like the Jobs Act, that's a real big focus of yours. This any type of tax reform or any type of change in legislation is where you shine, essentially. It's what you... Yeah, this is a big deal. When we've had our eye on this act since it was passed in I remember.
At the end of 2016, we've had a lot of... we paid a lot of attention to this act and what's happening with it. And so this is a big thing in the estate planning world.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, that's what we want to know today. So I am going to turn the mic over to you and just open up with the question. Mm-hmm. What do we need to know? Where do we even start? How do we help our listeners understand what this is and how it's going to impact them?
So the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 made a lot of changes to the tax world. So it did things like cap the mortgage interest deduction at $750,000 of home equity. It capped the SALT tax deduction, so the deduction for state and local tax. It capped or reduced the top tax rate to 37%. It made a lot of changes in mostly tax reductions, but it had a sunset built into it because when you have to pass legislation in Congress without 60 votes in the Senate, you have to do it without increasing the deficit too much over time, or else you can't do it at all. So they have to do it through what we call budget reconciliation, which is the way that you do it with only 51 votes in the Senate. It had a lot of these provisions had a sunset built in so that they would go away as of January 1st, 2026. Mm-hmm. So now the question is, are they going to go away? Is this actually going to happen? Will the sunset actually kick in? In my world, the biggest change from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was the estate tax exemption increasing to right now about $14 million per person. So that's what I've had my eye on in particular for so long.
So tell our listeners what that means.
So on a federal level, right now, everybody has the ability to gift during life or leave at death $13.99 million per person to anybody that you want.
So per child, per beneficiary.
So total of 14.
Total of 14.
If you have one child or 20 children, you can leave a total of 14 total. But married couples, as long as they're both U.S. citizens, can share theirs back and forth. So a married couple gets 28, essentially just under 28 million. The change from 2017 was that it doubled from where it was then to where it is now. So it was $5 million adjusted for inflation. So at the time it was like 6 and change. They doubled it to about 12 and change, and it's been creeping up for inflation ever since. So now it's at 14. So if the sunset happens, the doubling undoubles and we'll go back to 5 million plus inflation, but lots of years of inflation baked into it. So it's still going to be about 7 per person if the undoubling happens. So that's what we have been watching for so long to see if it actually is going to happen.
So how would that impact somebody's estate plan? I mean, besides the obvious of you can gift less, what's the overall impact of that? You have to find someplace else to put that money.
So essentially it means that if you have an estate that's worth, say you're in the middle between 7 and 14, say you have a $10 million estate, it matters a lot to you because you go from not having a taxable estate and not having to worry about estate taxes on a federal level to having a big issue where you have to plan for that and try to mitigate the problem. And the estate tax, if you do end up paying it, it's 40%. So it is a big tax if you do end up hitting it. So planning for it, trying to reduce the tax over time, trying to take advantage of your exemptions, or just finding a way to cover the risk to make sure that you're finding a way to pay for the tax if it does get assessed. Yeah. So one of the things people have been thinking about doing while the exemption is high is using it on purpose. So gifting while you can. So taking $10, $12, $13 million and gifting it now, expecting the exemption to go down in the future. So use the big, I always call it a coupon. It's like a coupon to get $14 million out of your estate tax-free. The idea would be to use the coupon before it expires. So people back before the election, essentially people were really focusing on using that $14 million exemption, using that coupon before it expires. The election changed a lot about how we're thinking about this. So now it's less likely that exemption is actually going to cut in half in January of 2026.
You don't think it will?
What happened in the election with having a Republican House, Senate, and White House, it's less likely that tax cuts are going to expire. And just a couple of weeks ago, the House released their budget proposal, and they are proposing that the large exemptions will get extended, not indefinitely, for like another 9 years.
Okay.
So we don't know for sure because there's always a give and take in Congress when they're hashing out tax reform. So we don't know for sure where they'll land, and it's anybody's guess, really. It's a little bit of a free-for-all. Estate taxes are always like a bargaining chip when they're doing that negotiating. So it's hard to predict what will happen. But if we'd seen a shift to the left in DC, there would have been a much greater chance that the sunset would happen, or that they would have picked some other number at random. It could have been 3, it could have been 8, they'll just pick a number. It would have
came from somewhere.
Yeah. But now with the exemption or with the new proposal, it looks pretty safe that it's not going to be reduced in the near term, but that in no way means that it's not going to be reduced ever.
At some point.
Yeah. So there's still lots of planning to do if you think that you're in a threshold where you're going to end up actually looking at estate taxes.
When will we know?
December 31st of 2025. I mean, it's really hard to guess. I mean, a lot of times.
Because that's when it was supposed to be January 1st, 2026, that it was supposed to sunset.
Right.
So the government will just confirm by the 1st, to your point.
I mean, if they pass tax legislation in October or, August or something, then we'll know earlier. But sometimes they wait until like January 2nd and make it retroactive. And, you think you're going to know by New Year's Eve or the ball drop, and it doesn't happen. So there's really no hard and fast rule about when we'll know. But we will keep our eye on it and let people know when we know. But my point always is that even when we have legislation, there's no guarantee that it's not going to change on a dime when there's a shift either way in Congress, or even if there's even without a shift, the next legislation can be something totally different. So it's never safe to bank on. I mean, permanent doesn't mean much in Washington. Permanent means that's what's on the books now. But that doesn't mean that it can't be repealed tomorrow.
Yeah, nothing's long term.
Right.
So what do you recommend people do? What are you saying to clients right now?
One of the frustrating things about the estate tax being so changeable all the time is that it really makes people put off their planning, which is not good.
Because they're waiting for an answer.
Right. People just say, I'm going to wait until we know. We're never going to know.
Yep. So, and then when you do know, it's going to change a minute later.
Exactly right. So my best advice is for people who have a largish estate, so have several $1 million and think this is going to be an issue for them, is to at least do your primary planning. Make sure that you've got your trust planning in place to start to gradually move money out of your estate. Make sure your life insurance is held properly. So at least your life insurance isn't going to be part of your taxable estate, which we can get into in greater detail if you want to kind of talk about the details of that. But just don't plan for the worst necessarily, but don't let opportunities slip by to get ahead of the game.
Yep.
And it's also important to understand that a lot of states have state estate taxes as well. And Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, a lot of the Northeast states, and a few in the Midwest, and Oregon, and a handful of them also have separate taxes that are assessed and independent of the federal. So in those states, it's important to do your planning because the exemptions often hit at a lower threshold. Like Massachusetts is just a $2 million exemption. Rhode Island is like $1.7 million. New York's about $7 million. So there tends to be a lower number. So not as high a rate if you pay it, but it is often assessed at a lower threshold. So, yeah.
And as always, the theme of our show is always work with a financial advisor, right? Who can bring somebody like you into the mix to help build that confidence, get some information. And I think we always say, you just got to start.
Yeah.
Because no one can tell the future.
Yes.
So let's just build a plan with what we know now. And when things change, we'll change with it.
Absolutely. A lot of the estate planning strategies that we do say irrevocable at the top of the trust document. It might have the word, but that doesn't mean there's not flexibility built into it. So even though it might sound like you're doing something a little bit aggressive for your plan, it doesn't mean that it's not livable. You can live with it over time. So.
That's a good point. That is a very scary word that you see very often. So I'm glad that you clarified that.
Yeah. A lot of our clients will do a trust that allows their spouse to have access to it. So even though if husband sets it up for wife, husband gives up access, but his wife has access. So it's kind of all in the family. If she needs money back, she takes it and then puts it back in the joint checking and it's not really gone for good. So there's ways to keep flexibility while also moving assets out of the estate.
Okay. What else are you telling clients right now? Or should we jump into the life insurance aspect of it?
Well, it depends on what kind of net worth they have. A lot of people come in and want to talk about estate taxes, or they're worried about estate taxes because they haven't updated their information in 15 years because they still think it's a much lower exemption because it used to be much lower. And if you're not attuned to tax news, you might not really be aware that the numbers have changed so much.
What numbers?
So, when I first started this career, the exemption was, I think, $2 million per person.
Oh,
federally.
God, the exemption numbers.
The exemption number, yeah. And it's grown steadily. It grew a little bit every year. Then it went to 5 and then they doubled it to 10 and it's been growing. So people often don't know that it's gotten a lot more generous. So people will say, how do I reduce the costs of dying? And a lot of times for most people, there isn't really much of a cost. It's the estate taxes have really gone away for most people. So sometimes it's just a matter of putting people's minds at ease that they don't need to worry about this particular tax. When people do have to worry about the tax, the first thing we talk about is using your annual gifting. So everybody can gift $19,000 per year to anybody in the world that they want to.
Okay.
So gifting to trust is popular. So, you've got 3 kids, that's 19 times 3. You've got 2 parents, double that because there's 2 givers and 3 recipients. So that kind of smallish number compared to a multi-million-dollar estate seems kind of insignificant. But if you use it every year, it definitely adds up. So that's a good place to start. And that's often the foundation for a life insurance trust.
That's where most people start.
Yeah. For their estate tax planning, for sure.
Yeah. And at what phase of life do people start that?
It's probably more like what's your net worth than sort of what your age is. But if you have an estate of a few $1 million, say, then it definitely makes sense to think about moving your life insurance outside of your estate.
Okay.
Especially in Connecticut, New York, these states that have state estate taxes. So, if you're, say, in Massachusetts and the exemption is just $2 million, it's easy to get to that number if you just have a 401k and a house and you add on 1 life insurance policy per spouse.
Yeah.
Then you're there. It's easy to get there. So for people who are in that situation, it's smart to think about, at the very least, taking your term insurance policy and putting it into a trust. Yeah, for sure.
I know you can't give us a number, and I'm not expecting that. But you mentioned it's more about net worth. Like, how do you know when you're ready for something like that?
the stage of life when people start thinking about this tends to be when their kids are starting to get a little bit older. I mean, most people that we talk about this stuff with have grandkids, are in their 50s, 60s and beyond. But we talk about it certainly with people who are younger, who have a lot of growth in their future, who have businesses that are growing, who are earning a lot and saving a lot. And you think projecting ahead, I mean, a financial plan is a great way to figure that out, figure out what you're earning, what your investment rate of return is, and where you're going to end up. So, but yeah, it's not something that people who are like a young couple who have their first baby need to worry about, most people. But if you've got a couple of $1 million of savings in a house and you've got 401ks and that kind of thing, or you own a business, then certainly it makes sense to at least have the discussion and get a kind of take a state of your life and figure out whether you need to do more complicated planning. Great. And if it's not the right time, that's great.
That's true. Yeah. So in this situation, college is set. You have a nice padding in your savings account. Yeah. Maybe house is paid off or close to being paid off. Yeah. Like all those big things. Retirement is under control. Mm-hmm. So all those big things are in place. Mm-hmm. And now this is kind of that advanced planning.
Right.
Is there anything else we need to know?
I mean, there's a lot of other elements to estate planning besides estate tax planning.
Sure.
So, I mean, don't think that you don't need estate planning because you don't need estate tax planning, because estate planning does all kinds of things.
Yes.
And it covers all kinds of risks and well above and beyond just reducing those costs of dying. So,
sure.
Anybody who's got kids, especially minor kids who have long-term care concerns, worried about what happens if you get sick. There's all kinds of risks that you can use your estate plan to help to mitigate.
Okay, so that's a really great distinction. So not confusing your estate tax plan with your estate plan.
Right.
And estate planning is definitely something that's part of an overall financial plan.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Anybody who has anything at all, if you own a thing, you have an estate. So it doesn't have to be millions. It could be, a checking account with $20 in it. Yep. That's your estate. So if you own something, you should have a plan for what happens to that thing or things if you pass away. And that's what a basic estate plan will do for you.
Okay. And that you could do with your financial advisor as well. Mm-hmm. And they bring in you based on the complexity of it.
Yeah, absolutely. An estate plan is just mapping out where your assets go and covering risks like, what if somebody gets an inheritance and then gets divorced and you're worried about, will their inheritance go to the spouse or something like that? So there's all kinds of risks that you can plan for.
Okay. Yeah. And then as you age and as life becomes a little bit more complex and there's moving parts, that's when you or your advisor would bring in the estate tax planning strategy.
Absolutely.
Got it. So with regards to the Tax Cuts and the Jobs Acts, we don't know, right? We're going to have to all spend the rest of the year just waiting.
Yeah. On pins and needles.
Yep. And again, Kate does not have a crystal ball. She's just giving us her wonderful opinion.
If only.
But, at the moment, things are staying exactly the same. We have no reason to think that they will be changing.
Yeah. The vast majority of the provisions of that law seem like they're going to get extended.
Okay.
That's my best guess for now.
Okay. Which is good news for people.
Yeah. Most of them are good news. Yeah. There are a few things that I think there are things on there that were increasing taxes, but for the most part, most of the things on there were tax cuts. It's right there in the name, right? Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So most of them were cuts. The only thing there's a few things that were limitations, but like the SALT cap was a new thing. Yep. So there are certainly provisions or proposals that would repeal that cap, even though it's in the proposal from the House, it's not repealed. So there are things that might be better and a few things that might be worse. So
all right. Well, maybe we'll do another check-in around June or July. Yeah. See if you can forecast any more for us.
If I do know more, I will let you know. If there's any movement on any of this stuff, I definitely
we can all sleep easy because Kate is going to take care of us because I am certainly not following any of this in the news. So I'm grateful to you, Kate, for all the work. Yes, for all the work that you do.
My pleasure.
But that is it for today's episode of Master Your Money and Mindset. If you found this helpful, please subscribe and share this episode with somebody who might benefit. Until next time, stay smart with your money and strong in your mindset. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Master Your Money and Mindset. You can find these episodes on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you heard. You can follow Barnum Financial Group on LinkedIn and Instagram. Thanks so much.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.